I'm Stefanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us. Now, with the start of President Donald Trump's second term in January, nonprofit organizations found themselves in unfamiliar territory. The administration's efforts to rescind federal support that had already been promised to these groups was unexpected, leaving many wondering how they'd meet their budget needs for the rest of the fiscal year. And while some of that money was restored, with the federal government shut down since October 1st, those same organizations are in uncertain waters again. In light of all of this, the Community West Foundation, which awards grant money to nonprofit organizations, has launched a campaign. The goal is to try to create a safety net for our social safety net. They're calling it Keep the Good Going, and the goal is to raise awareness about and funding for the dozens of nonprofit organizations that serve Northeast Ohio. So to fill us in on the project, along with what nonprofit groups say they need to continue to provide services in Northeast Ohio, today we're joined by a panel. We have Marty Uhle, Community West Foundation CEO. Marty, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We also have Helen Forbes Fields, CEO of the YWCA of Greater Cleveland. Helen, welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And we have Andy Trares, Executive Director of the May Dugan Center. Andy, thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you.
Now, if you want to be part of the conversation, maybe you participated or received some resources from a nonprofit organization, or maybe you have some thoughts or some questions for the people we have here today, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email at soi@ideastream.org, or you can message us on Instagram. We are at The Sound of Ideas. And my first question goes to Marty. Marty, what does the Community West Foundation do, and how many nonprofits does it support in our area?
Community West Foundation is a funder, primarily. That is our goal, to support basic needs services on downtown, the west side, and Lorain County. And we funded this year about 103 nonprofits, all across the spectrum of basic needs.
Okay, so this new campaign, Keep the Good Going, that's what the campaign is called. It's about raising money for your Community Impact Fund. Now, that fund has been operating for 3 years now. So why did you feel the need for this awareness campaign, the Keep the Good Going campaign, now?
Keep the Good Going to raise awareness for all the nonprofits that we fund was vital this year and every year. The Community Impact Fund supports all of our nonprofits, but we wipe it out every year, and we have to raise the money again. Last year, $750,000 was donated by our community to help the 100 nonprofits in addition to our grant making. So it's a bonus. And this year, more than ever, we need to raise that awareness to sustain and support these nonprofits. There's lots of things happening with government funding and priorities, and we need to make sure that the social safety net is propped up and funded.
Helen, I'll ask you now, what's been different in the past year for the YWCA of Greater Cleveland when it comes to paying for the many programs that YWCA provides?
Well, I would say we've had tremendous change since January with the many executive orders that affect nonprofits and our existence. We've seen a change in terms of corporate giving because of those executive orders. We've seen a change in terms of funding, not just from federal government, which we have threats daily in terms of the amount of funding that we can receive, but also in terms of state and local government. I think people don't understand when there are cuts from the federal government, that trickles down to other governments in terms of state and local. And so our motto is that we receive funding from those three sources, as well as corporate funding. And we've seen a tremendous effect in terms of our budget. And I can tell you we have a great deal of fear in terms of the coming years and how some of our programs will continue to exist, which are absolutely necessary in terms of social services that we offer to the community.
You offer quite a range of social services to the community. Are you able to tell us of the services that YWCA offers? Have any been particularly hard hit with this uncertainty? Has one particular service been impacted more than another, or is it kind of across the board?
It's been across the board. Right now we're dealing with tremendous cuts that have occurred to our Early Learning Center program. It's a preschool for children ages 3 through 5. We work with our children to make sure they're kindergarten ready. and we intentionally recruit families who live in shelter. Our belief is that they want for their children exactly what you and I would want for our own children, and we want to be there to provide the best education that we can for those families, as well as we provide wraparound services to our families, not just the children, but services to their parents and their siblings. And so we're affecting a great deal of lives just with providing education to our preschoolers. So we're seeing effects across the board. But our early learning center right now has suffered a $300,000 cut, which is tremendous in terms of the services we offer to those families.
I don't know if you have this number available, and if you don't, that's okay. But if we can try to give some context to that $300,000 number, what is the operating budget annually?
The operating budget for our preschool is approximately $1 million, or it has been. And when I mentioned wraparound services, we used that $300,000 from state funding. It was TANF funding, which we no longer receive. We use that for our salaries. We use that for our training for our teachers. We provide trauma-informed care to our families. That means we take our families as they are, we work with them, and we provide them with the adequate nurture and support that they need. We have family engagement specialists who work with their families individually to see what it is that they need to make it through the school year. Some may need housing. We're there to help navigate in terms of housing. But when you suffer a $300,000 cut, something has to go. We've lost one of our family engagement specialists. And there's a huge effect in terms of the salaries that we can pay our teachers. And I think if anyone's listening to me out there who knows about education, teachers have been very, very difficult to find over the past years.
Thank you for sharing that, Helen. And Andy, I'll ask you now, can you explain what the May Dugan Center is and who it serves?
Yeah, the May Dugan Center, we are a social service agency located in Ohio City here in Cleveland, but we serve people throughout Cuyahoga County with multiple services. So that includes food and clothing distribution, behavioral health services, services for victims of crime, senior program, refugee resettlement, and adult education.
Quite a range of services as well being provided by the May Dugan Center. Now, Andy, can you break down for us how much of your funding typically comes from government support versus private donors, and whether that's changed in the past year?
So we started the year expecting to be about 55% federally funded this year. That's from a variety of different sources, about 8 to 10 sources. At this point in the year, we're about 35% federally funded. And so members of the community have stepped up and helped fill some of that gap, but not all of it.
So this question is for both Helen and Andy, and I'll direct it to Helen first. The YWCA and the May Dugan Center aren't political organizations by nature, but you are having to adapt with changing political winds. So Helen, had you thought that you might need to pause services or maybe lay off people due to this kind of back and forth that we've seen this year? Was that in your purview at all?
Of course, that's always on the table, but we are working hard to make sure that we can keep all of our staff and that we can continue to provide services. Let me give you a good example. We have a program called Independence Place. We provide housing to young adults ages 18 through 24. We actually have 23 apartments located at our main building at 40th and Prospect. Those young people, most of them have aged out of foster care at 18. They have nowhere to go, no advocates in their lives. We step in and we provide that advocacy and that support to those young people. What we're hearing is that there may be tremendous cuts that will occur to HUD. That's how they pay their rent. Most of our young people are impoverished. They have a disability. Most of the time it's related to mental health. We are working to teach our young people social skills so when they leave us, they can thrive when they leave the YWCA. If we lose that funding from HUD in terms of their rent, does that mean that we kick out 23 tenants because they no longer can pay the rent? We are very committed to keeping those young people with us and keeping others who need housing, but we will have to come up with new ways to raise money to provide for their housing costs. We supplement housing costs through our own fundraising. But we're committed to continue to provide this program because it's so needed. If they don't live with us, they live on the streets.
You know, Stephanie, we're hearing that from all of our nonprofits. So we vet completely these 100 nonprofits, but we're dealing with groups that are supporting 8,000 of those housing units, 10,000 housing units. And they're all in that same HUD discussion that Helen described for the 24. And the beauty of what nonprofits do in our community is they care about 24. They care about 50. They care about 20. We can't solve poverty, but keeping people housed, free from addiction, fed, nonprofits do that. And what Helen's describing, we're hearing across the spectrum.
Andy, I'll ask you now, the Meg Dugan Center as well, not an inherently political organization. So what has that been like to try to navigate kind of adapting with the political winds?
It really comes down to just describing what's happening. Like conversations like this today, where we've described the value of our organizations and all the nonprofits in the community that provide the social safety net, and just discussing how policy decisions, not necessarily political actions, but policy decisions, are impacting our organizations and our ability to serve the most vulnerable in our community. And so, just being honest and communicative about the reality that we're all facing as organizations has been key this year.
I want to share an anecdotal note. Our producer, Drew, lives near the May Dugan Center, and he shared that when the food distribution is happening, the lines are very long. People are waiting. So can you speak to us about the need that you continue to see for food distribution? It seems that it has not let up since the pandemic, when it was such a major issue here, and was before that as well.
Yeah, so at the start of the pandemic, our food distribution program tripled in size. And we expected that, eventually to go back down to what we were, the volume that we were serving prior to the pandemic. Unfortunately, it's continued to go up year after year. And last year, we served over 25,000 people with our food distribution program, 939,000 meals worth of food to the community. And so, that increase continues to grow. We're actually seeing a bit of an increase this year, and we anticipate over the next couple of weeks with the government shutdown, as well as into next year, with continued changes to benefits and inflation, that we'll continue to see the food distribution numbers increase.
So Marty, I want to ask you, with this new campaign, the Keep the Good Going campaign, how have donors responded? Is the Community Impact Fund growing? Are you seeing a good response there?
Absolutely. We're feeling very good about being able to reach our goals for the full year for the Impact Fund at a basic level of $750,000, again, to repeat the work we were able to do last year. This is helping raise that awareness and fill that bucket again before we get into our grant making for 2026. We've been blessed by some growth in the stock market. That's also going to help funders with resources that are available in 2026. And we know we can't fill the gap for what the government funds. We can't. There's a tenfold difference between philanthropy and government funding, but we can fill gaps. And our goal at Community West Foundation is to give unrestricted grants to people like Helen and Andy so they can use it where it most critically needs to be done. And the community is responding. We're thrilled about that.
We have a call now from Todd in Cleveland. Todd, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Please share your question.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Todd. Welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Go ahead.
Okay, there was a delay. That's why I didn't say anything. Okay, so Stefanie, Marana, Andy, Helen. Helen, this question is mainly for you. You handle the YWCA, correct?
I do.
So, in your own personal opinion, of the multiple things that you're trying to solve through the YWCA, is there one thing that you have highest on your list that you like to have funding for, that you think you could help the community with best? Is there one thing that sits above the rest of the other things that you're working on to help provide help to the community?
Todd, that's like asking me to choose one child over another. I can't quite do that. What I can tell you, at the YWCA, we provide services across the board. We affect populations from age 3 until end of life. One thing I haven't talked about, we provide shelter for women. We currently operate 2 shelters, and we also have a swing space when we have no room in our 2 shelters for women. Last night we had 260 women to come to our doors seeking shelter. They come for a variety of reasons. Economic reasons. They can no longer sustain their housing. Others are greatly affected through mental health issues. They've been in the hospital. We've had people literally who have been dropped at our doors from the hospital with their hospital gowns still on. And so we know that that is the most important program that we offer. I would say all of the programs that we offer are needed for individuals who have found themselves, just because of life circumstances, where they need additional help. And that's why we're here, to provide that safety net, as Marty mentioned, to provide that shelter, provide education. When it's difficult to do so on your own, we are there to provide that support to our families. So I can't really choose one or the other. I can tell you shelter is needed, affordable housing is needed, education for our young people are needed. There's so much need in the community. And once I took this role, I realized it was just, it was a huge surprise about the amount of need. We all live in our own bubbles, and we don't understand the amount of need that there is out in our community. And we're trying to do our small part that we can, Todd, to affect lives. I tell the staff, if we change a life each day, we've done our job. So I can't choose one over the other, but I can tell you there's a tremendous amount of need in Cleveland, and all of us need as much help as we possibly can get from the public.
Now, to that point about the tremendous amount of need in Cleveland, Marty, I want to direct this question to you. The Community West Foundation awards grants to more than 100 nonprofits in Northeast Ohio annually. Around 60 are participating in the Keep the Good Going campaign. So I want to ask you, in terms of bringing awareness to what's needed here in Northeast Ohio, is there a particular service that's being provided that you think might surprise people, or is there amount of need of a particular service that you think might surprise people here in Northeast Ohio that you've come across in your role?
I think the biggest surprise to me when I took this role is what is being done for the people coming back from prison. We also support people who are re-entering Cuyahoga County after serving time. They've served their time, and now they're coming back. And we're a very large funder of the homeless services system in the county. And we started going upstream a little bit. Where are these men arriving from? And they're coming out of prison. They can't go back to permanent supportive housing due to restrictions with the leases that maybe their mom or their dad has signed. They can't go there. They go to the homeless shelter from jail. That's not a great start. So there are some amazing programs going on, teaching people job skills, finding them jobs while they're in prison. And then they come out into the community. And we see it most likely downtown here with people who are in the culinary arts, at the Marble Room, at Key Tower, at Edwin's, at all of the restaurants are employing a lot of people who've been trained for that. That was a surprise for me.
I'll ask you, Andy, with the May Dugan Center, you've been a recipient from funding from the Community Impact Fund. Can you tell us how that's helped your program?
So it's helped us in so many ways. With the funding through the Community Impact Fund from the Community West Foundation, we've been able to continue to meet the need of the community. So for our food distribution program, in 2023, we provided 624,000 meals to the community. Last year, we provided 939,000 meals. That's a 50% increase in 1 year. And while we switched our whole format and expanded access so that more people could have services, that wouldn't have been possible without the support of Community West Foundation or other supporters in the community and the Community Impact Fund.
Very real results there. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Helen, I'll ask you the same thing. How has the YWCA benefited from the Community Impact Fund with Community West Foundation?
Well, Community West Foundation has been very supportive of the YWCA, and in particular, they support our shelter services that I just mentioned. They also provide us with funding that we have a food pantry with one of our programs with older adults. Many are low income and don't have sufficient resources to provide food for themselves. Another example I can give that's very quick, at our shelter system, it's a very difficult job. I don't know many people who wake up every day and say, I want to work at a shelter. But the people who work for us and part of our team are very dedicated, and we're all doing God's work. But the work can be very stressful. And Community West has provided us with support to have employees on board who can provide resources and help our employees to de-stress, because each day can be a huge stressor for many. So we are very grateful for the support from Community West, and many of our other foundation supporters have all really helped us as much as they possibly can. As Marty says, they can't fill the gaps in terms of the budget that we receive from governmental services, but they really have been there to help us, and we know that we're not alone in this fight.
So the reason we're talking about this today is because of the Keep the Good Going campaign. That's something that launched October 1st. And so, Marty, I'd like to dedicate the last minute of the show so you can tell people everything they need to know about Keep the Good Going and how they can get involved.
KeepTheGoodGoing.org is the place to start to learn about the agencies we fund and what the money that people contribute can do in the community. These agencies are doing the work that we don't have to, so that our least of our brothers and sisters are supported. Give to that campaign. 100% of the donations that come into our foundation are distributed to the community. We're blessed with a historical endowment that pays for our work. So everything that we do to raise money in the community goes right back out. And it's a beautiful thing for me to talk to people who say, listen, I'm not a millionaire. I have $1,000, I have $500, I have $100. Put it into our fund, and we'll spread that impact throughout the community, all over downtown, the west side, and Lorain County.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Marty. And again, that website is keepthegoodgoing.org. Helen Forbes Field, CEO of the YWCA of Greater Cleveland, Marty Uhle, Community West Foundation CEO, and Andy Trares, Executive Director of the May Dugan Center. Thank you all for being with us here in studio today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, that wraps up our show for today. To get the last word on today's topics, you can send an email to soi@ideastream.org. You can also find us on Instagram. We are at The Sound of Ideas. Now, yesterday we had a wide-ranging conversation about the future of farming. We spent some time discussing agrotourism, and Bill sent us this email. I've been a professional farmer since 1985 upon graduation from college. My wife's family have been farming in the Hartville area since the 1800s. We used to farm about 3,000 acres in the 1990s. We still row crops, some about 300 plus acres. We began diversification in the late 1990s and now operate a winery, craft brewery restaurant, and most recently espresso bar, complemented by a pretty extensive event schedule. I'm pretty well versed in the world of commodities, and today's current situation has been greatly exacerbated by the current administration's policies beginning in 2018, but it's also over 4 decades in the making. Thank you very much for sharing that first-person perspective with us here on The Sound of Ideas. We appreciate it. Now, tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, we'll feature an interview with Mayor Justin Bibb, who's running to keep his seat this November. We did seek out an interview with his opponent, Laverne Gore, whose campaign first accepted and then declined to be interviewed. So we will not hear from Laverne Gore tomorrow. But we will hear about school levies in Northeast Ohio that will be on the ballot. This is Stefanie Haney. Thank you for being with us for The Sound of Ideas. We'll be with you tomorrow.
Support for WKSU is provided by Oberlin Artist Recital Series, presenting British vocal ensemble Voces 8 on Tuesday, October 28th at 7:30 p.m. in Finney Chapel. Information at oberlin.edu/artsguide. The Cleveland Orchestra, presenting Alfred Hitchcock's films Psycho and Vertigo with live orchestral accompaniment. November 5th and 7th at Severance. Information at clevelandorchestra.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WKSU Kent, a public media service licensed to Kent State University and operated by IdeaStream Public Media. WKSU serves Northeast Ohio through HD and on WCPN Lorain Cleveland 104.9.